Hello everyone, in this video I will be performing a consecutive interpretation of Kelly's video titled A Day in the Life of an In-Person Medical Interpreter. This activity is part of my interpreting practice, especially focused on medical context and consecutive interpreting technique.
For those of you who don't know, my name is Kelly. I am an on site, in person medical interpreter, Spanish medical interpreter in Virginia. I made this video because I'm teaching a class about the mediums of interpretation. Nowadays, everything seems to be moving more towards remote interpretation. And because of that, I wanted to focus the majority of my class on remote interpretation. However, I wanted to go ahead and make this video for anyone, any students, or perhaps anyone who is just interested in how in-person interpretation works. And also to let everyone know that, well, yes, us in-person interpreters do exist. Not all interpretation takes place over the phone or via video. There are real people out there like me every day who go to hospitals, who go to medical facilities, clinics, mental health facilities, and go in person to interpret for patients every day. So to
Hai semuanya, bagi kalian yang belum tahu nama saya Kelly, saya adalah seorang juru bahasa medis yang bekerja langsung di lokasi. Juru bahasa medis bahasa Spanyol di negara berdialek Virginia. Saya membuat video ini karena saya sedang mengajar sebuah kelas tentang berbagai media dalam interpretasi. Saat ini semuanya tampaknya mulai beralih ke interpretasi jarak jauh. Karena itu saya ingin memfokuskan sebagian besar materi kelas saya pada interpretasi jarak jauh. Namun saya juga ingin membuat video ini untuk siapapun, baik mahasiswa atau orang lain yang tertarik untuk memahami bagaimana interpretasi secara langsung itu bekerja, dan juga untuk memberitahu semua orang bahwa ya kami para juru bahasa langsung masih ada, tidak semua interpretasi dilakukan melalui telepon atau video. Masih ada orang-orang seperti saya yang datang ke rumah sakit, ke fasilitas medis, klinik, pusat kesehatan jiwa dan melakukan interpretasi untuk pasien secara langsung setiap hari.
So to start off with, I wanted to make it clear that I am an independent contractor. So this means that I am not an employee of, say, a hospital system or clinic. Instead, I work with, oh my goodness, dozens of interpreting agencies. I have contracts with a bunch of different interpreting agencies that offer on-site appointments in my area and beyond. Sometimes I do get assignment offers. Even though I'm in Richmond, Virginia, I have gotten assignment offers in the Tidewater area, so it's further down south, as well as in the DC metro.
Sebagai permulaan, saya ingin menegaskan bahwa saya adalah seorang kontraktor independen. Artinya saya bukan pegawai tetap rumah sakit atau klinik. Sebaliknya, saya bekerja dengan puluhan agensi interpretasi. Saya memiliki kontrak dengan berbagai agensi yang menyediakan penugasan langsung di area saya dan sekitarnya. Terkadang saya menerima tawaran penugasan bahkan di luar kota Richmond, Virginia, seperti wilayah Tidewater atau wilayah Metro Virginia.
Typically, how it works is an interpreting agency that I work for, they receive a request for an appointment. They'll either send me out an email, a text, or through their proprietary platform, an assignment offer. And usually, if I'm the first person to accept that assignment, I get that assignment. Or in some cases, I express my availability, and then the interpreting agency, through their own process, decides which of their interpreters who've responded that they're available are going to get the appointment. So I keep a calendar of all my appointments, of course, making sure to leave out any personally identifying information of the patients. And on the day of the appointment, I arrive typically 15 minutes early.
Oke, biasanya cara kerjanya seperti ini. Agensi interpretasi tempat saya bekerja menerima permintaan jam di tengah. Lalu mereka mengirimkan email, pesan teks, atau menggunakan platform mereka untuk menawarkan penugasan kepada saya. Jika saya yang pertama menerima, maka saya yang mendapat penugasannya. Dalam kasus lain, saya mengatakan ketersediaan saya dan mereka yang memilih siapa yang ditugaskan. Saya menyimpan kalender jam ditunggu, tentu saja tanpa informasi pribadi pasien. Pada hari penugasan, saya datang sekitar 15 menit lebih awal.
Facility, and I arrive typically 15 minutes early to the facility. And I will, if it's a hospital, typically I will present myself at central registration of the hospital or registration in general at the hospital. I introduce myself as the interpreter and tell the person registering patients the name of the patient that I'm there to interpret for. This is where it gets tricky because sometimes facilities expect me to know when my patient is arriving, the patient for whom I'm interpreting. But the thing is that I don't know what my patient looks like most of the time. Sometimes I do interpret for the same patients that I've interpreted for before. Some facilities assume that just by appearance I'll be able to know my patient when they arrive. So I am sure to let these facilities know that they need to let me know when that patient arrives. Sometimes if I overhear someone speaking in Spanish and they're expressing that they're lost, that they don't know what to do, and I'm waiting for my patient to arrive, I might approach them and let them know, my name's Kelly, I'm a Spanish interpreter. I'm here waiting for a patient. And I do not give them the name of that patient because that would be a HIPAA violation. I wait for and I do not give them the name of that patient because that would be a HIPAA violation. I wait for that person to give me their name, and if they are the person I am there to interpret for, I will then return to the registration area with that patient. Otherwise, I will do my best to help that person, perhaps get them connected with an interpreter, making sure that staff knows that this person is Spanish speaking and needs assistance. From there,
Jika saya bertugas di rumah sakit, saya melapor ke bagian pendaftaran utama. Saya memperkenalkan diri sebagai juru bahasa dan menyebutkan nama pasien. Tapi disinilah sering muncul tantangan. Terkadang pihak fasilitas mengira saya bisa mengenali pasiennya. Padahal biasanya saya tidak tahu seperti apa untuk pasien tersebut. Kecuali kalau saya pernah bekerja sama dengan pasien itu sebelumnya, beberapa staf mengasumsikan saya akan langsung mengenali pasien hanya dengan melihat. Jadi saya memastikan agar mereka memberitahu saya ketika pasien tempat. Kalau saya mendengar seorang berbicara dalam bahasa Spanyol dan tanpa kebingungan, saya mungkin menekan dan memperkenalkan diri. Saya tidak pernah menyebutkan nama pasien lebih dulu karena itu akan melanggar aturan MIPA. Saya menunggu mereka menyebutkan nama mereka dulu. Jika cocok, saya kembali ke meja pendaftaran bersama mereka. Kalau tidak cocok, saya tetap berusaha membantu dan memastikan mereka mendapatkan layanan bahasa.
Now, if I'm going to a private practice, a doctor's office, I will pretty much go through the same process, but oftentimes the waiting areas are smaller, and I can usually hear the name of the person when they're introducing themselves to reception. And at that point, I will typically walk up and introduce myself as their interpreter for that day. Of course, we try not to engage in those side conversations in the waiting room. Usually I try to redirect patients as best as I can to, if they have any questions, ask the provider. And if they try and mention anything about their appointment, I say, okay, well, we can talk about that once you get into the room. Because part of being a medical interpreter is making sure that, one, you're not giving any unsolicited or even solicited healthcare advice. I'm just an interpreter. It's outside of my role. And two, you never know what comes up in these conversations. So always try and redirect the patient back to who they need to speak to about certain issues. Really setting clear expectations for the patient. Then we will.
Kalau saya bertugas sebagai praktik dokter pribadi, prosesnya mirip, namun tentunya biasanya lebih kecil. Biasanya saya bisa mendengar nama pasien ketika mereka chat. Lalu saya memperkenalkan diri sebagai juru bahasa. Kami tidak melakukan obrolan ringan di ruang tunggu. Saya mengarahkan mereka untuk menyimpan pertanyaan sampai bertemu dengan dokternya. Kalau mereka mulai menceritakan keluhannya, saya akan bilang bahwa kita akan bicara nanti saat sudah di dalam ruangan. Sebagai juru bahasa medis, saya tidak memberikan saran medis meskipun mereka bertanya. Itu bukan bagian dari peran saya. Lagi pula, kita tidak tahu apa yang bisa muncul dari pembicaraan seperti itu. Jadi saya selalu mengarahkan mereka untuk menyampaikan kepada tenaga medis.
usually go back with the provider, whether it be at a hospital or it be at a private practice. I interpret when the provider's in the room, when the nurse is in the room. I might facilitate some interactions with reception staff if they do not speak the patient's language. Even if they do, oftentimes I hang back, and try and help, because we all know that there are folks who express that they speak a language when their abilities in that language might not be up to par. And I remain in the room as long as there is a healthcare provider in the room. Once the healthcare provider leaves the room, I then leave the room as well. And I usually, if the patient says, "Why don't you stay here?" And I usually smile and I apologize and say, "I'm sorry, it's against the interpreter code of ethics for me to stay in the room with you." And
Begitu kami masuk ke ruang periksa, saya menerjemahkan untuk dokter, perawat, atau staf lain. Kadang saya juga membantu di meja depan jika mereka tidak bisa berbahasa Spanyol. Meskipun mereka bisa, saya tetap berada di dekat mereka untuk berjaga-jaga. Karena kadang orang mengira mereka bisa berbahasa, padahal sebenarnya tidak cukup lancar. Saya hanya berada di ruangan saat ada tenaga kesehatan. Begitu tenaga kesehatan keluar, saya juga keluar. Kalau pasien yang bertanya kenapa saya pergi, saya akan menjelaskan bahwa kode etik juru bahasa tidak mengizinkan saya berada di ruangan tanpa kehadiran tenaga medis.
at the end of the appointment, I will accompany the patient to reception if they need to make a follow-up appointment. Otherwise, if it's in a hospital, sometimes I do direct the patient on how to leave the hospital because, of course, all of the signs are not in Spanish and it's difficult to find the main entrance or whatever entrance it is that they entered at. Hospitals can be very confusing. And fortunately, I pretty much have a nice little roadmap of all the hospitals in the area in my head. That's pretty much the gist of in-person medical interpretation. Now, of course, these days with COVID-19, in-person roadmap of all the hospitals in the
Di akhir janji temu, saya kadang menemani pasien ke bagian resepsionis untuk membuat janji lanjutan. Kalau di rumah sakit, saya mungkin membantu menunjukkan arah keluar. Banyak tanda tidak tersedia dalam bahasa Spanyol. Jadi mereka bisa kesulitan menemukan jalan keluar. Rumah sakit bisa sangat membingungkan. Tentunya saya sudah sangat familiar dengan tata letak banyak rumah sakit di sekitarnya.
area in my head. That's pretty much the gist of in-person medical interpretation. Now, of course, these days with COVID-19, yes, even though the CDC says that that fully vaccinated folks can go unmasked, because I'm in medical facilities are exempt from that, and I predominantly engage in pediatric interpreting, which means I'm working with a lot of children who are unable to be vaccinated, in which case it makes sense for me to wear a mask. And if I am interpreting for an especially young child, I may wear eye protection simply because it's not unheard of to have a child sneeze in your face. It's happened to me before. Yeah, because in pediatric interpreting, a lot of times, if you're doing physical therapy or occupational therapy or even speech therapy, you might have to get down on the floor with the provider.
Nah, karena COVID-19, meskipun saya di sini menyatakan bahwa orang yang sudah divaksin boleh tidak pakai masker, fasilitas medis tidak termasuk dalam aturan itu. Saya kebanyakan menerjemahkan untuk pasien anak-anak, jadi saya tetap memakai masker karena banyak anak belum bisa divaksin. Kalau saya bertugas untuk anak kecil, saya bahkan bisa memakai pelindung mata. Kenapa? Karena ya saya pernah bersin di wajah oleh anak-anak di lingkungan pediatrik seperti terapi fisik, terapi okupasi, atau terapi bicara. Kadang kita harus duduk di lantai bersama terapis, dan itu membuat anak-anak sangat mudah datang, mendekat, dan bersin tepat di wajah kita. Okay, maybe that's all for me. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.